Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. As an elite level runner and coach, I'm excited to introduce you to the All-In Running Club. The All-In Running Club exists to help you become a better runner. Whether you're a beginner, an elite runner, or anywhere in between, the mission of the All-In Running Club is to give you the tools you need to find your success in running. Join today to take advantage of the 75% off yearly membership rate offer. Click the link below in the show notes to learn more. So thank you, Scott, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Hey, my pleasure. I'm glad to be here, Jerry, and catch back up with you. It's been a few years since our days back on the A&M track team. What years were you there exactly?
So I came in the fall of 92, and then
that's
of course the redshirt year, and so I finished up in 97.
Okay. Yeah, I was 89 to 94. I was on the 5-year plan there. So you were there with the whole Scott Garvin and Donnie and all those guys. Yeah, you're part of that crew.
Yeah, they broke me in.
Well, that's a heck of a crew to break you in. Well, I hear the cross country team, the women's cross country team, had a pretty awesome season this year.
They did. As this the first time in 23 years, I think they've been to the NCAA championship. So
yeah, they got second in their regional, I think, second only to Arkansas. And then they qualified the whole team to move on to NCs. You know, that was pretty exciting to hear. That's great stuff.
Yep. And I think they were only projected fourth going into the meet. So
really?
That's a huge improvement on where they were projected to be. So, but yeah, so it is great to connect with you on a like a level that's a sports improvement piece, but also an overall health improvement piece. Yeah. And, you know, when you reached out and told me about like what's going on, I was like, okay, I need to talk to you about this, like, and let people know what's coming, because I think everybody knows like that every day technology is breaking through on different things. Right. And while there's the pharmaceutical side, which over the last 3 years, everybody's sort of gotten a very hypersensitive piece to, right? The different technology pieces that's going on there. And it's like, okay, how can we do things that are not pharmaceutical related, but still improve our health? And that's what y'all have got going on, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's truly amazing. Absolutely. You know, it's, to put it in a nutshell, where we are able to oxygenate pools of water with what we call ultra-fine nanobubbles. These are bubbles that are so small. I mean, they're totally invisible to the naked eye, right? But they're so small that they can actually penetrate through the skin, you know, through the pores, the skin and the pores, and directly into the tissue and directly into the bloodstream. Right. So in a nutshell, instead of your oxygen intake being limited to what you can absorb through the lungs, your entire skin becomes a breathing apparatus, and it's like breathing 3 to 4 times the amount of oxygen that you normally would. Totally amazing. Right.
And it's completely safe too, right? Because it's just oxygen, right? Like we're getting it anyway. It's not like it's not some, you know, synthetic oxygen or anything like that. Like it's just
no, it's not. In fact, what the process in its general steps is it pulls, you know, ambient air through a condenser. So it then condenses that, pulls, you know, basically scrubs the nitrogen out of the air. Gotcha. And so it starts feeding 95 to 99% pure oxygen into what we call the nanobubble generator. Right. And that's what produces these super small, these bubbles are like 20 nanometers to 100 nanometers in size.
Oh, wow.
And if you could picture this, okay, so your normal water bubbles like 1 millimeters to 3 millimeters, right?
Right.
And so if you shake a bottle of water and you see those little bubbles, those that are visible to the eye, you could fit about 250 to 300 million of these ultra-fine nanobubbles into each one of those small bubbles. That's how small they are, okay? And that's 95 to 99% pure oxygen, similar to what you'd get from a hyperbaric chamber or an oxygen concentrator, right?
Right.
So you're getting that pure oxygen in the ultra-fine nanobubbles. It infuses it into the water. So the machine itself will pull water out of the tub, out of your pool, your whirlpool, run it through the nanobubble generator, infuse it with the nanobubbles, and then shoot it right back into your pool. And it's just sitting in a pool of that's filled with these small bubbles, pure oxygen bubbles. Totally natural. Yep.
And like you said, so I mean, most of us that have watched sports, right? We've seen, especially the NFL, we see the NFL, the guys that go play in Denver, right? Third quarter, they're all reaching for oxygen, right? Because it's like the visiting team, at least, is all reaching for oxygen because it's like that. And I experienced that last year. I went and ran a race in Boulder, and for going from Waco's at I think 450 feet altitude to Boulder, which is over a mile, and I was fine for about, it was a 5K. I was fine for about a mile and a half.
Okay.
And then it just hit, and I stopped like a ton of bricks, and people were just flying by me, and I was like, I'm trying so hard, I can't keep up because I had no oxygen left. Like there's just nothing, from an athletics or performance standpoint or anything we're doing, whether you're at a high level or not, anything you're trying to move your body, it works on oxygen. Right? It works on oxygen and it works on glucose, and so you have to have the two. That's why we eat, and that's why we got to breathe.
Yeah. So those are the two elements that work on a cellular level. You get into the mitochondria. Not to get too wonkish on the biology, which you're into, but there is no cell that will work without glucose or oxygen. Take one of those out of the mix, and it just shuts down. Right.
Yeah. And if we're getting extra oxygen, it's just because that's the other thing about what's working in the bloodstream to you're moving oxygen to the cell, and once that transfers, you're getting the carbon dioxide out, you're getting the trash out, and you're moving it along, and it can only exit stuff out if you've got oxygen going in.
Exactly.
And so the more oxygen going in, the more trash you get coming out.
And so that's the beauty from the detox standpoint of this is that. So the way that I kind of advise people to use this, I got three kind of general applications, and imagine I'm talking to a fitness club owner or a gym owner, or anybody who might be just an individual user, for a recovery. I would spend 20 minutes in the tub because that will raise the oxygen levels. The way that it's measured is called SMO2. It's muscle oxygen saturation. Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's a device that measures it. It's called a near infrared spectroscopy, a nurse monitor.
Right.
And we actually have those. We've done studies on these over the last 2-3 years. But you sit in that tub for about 20 minutes, and it will raise, your oxygen levels back up to about normal. Okay. Actually, 10 to 15 minutes will raise that SMO2 up to pretty high levels. Normally, young athletes or young individuals, anybody to say around 25, anybody in their 20s or younger, when they're at rest, just walking around doing nothing, SMO2, the normal amount of oxygen in the muscles, in the tissues, is somewhere around 70%, 70 to 75%.
Okay.
You exercise like you did at high altitude, that drops, and it can drop as low as 10%, especially under such extreme circumstances, right?
Right.
So once it gets that low, then recovery is fully based on getting that oxygen level back up. Because if you don't have that oxygen level in the tissues back up to at least a normal state, recovery is going to take a long time. So getting in the tub, and we've done the studies on this. We've seen this through a number of athletes that have done it. Sitting in that tub, 15 minutes, 20 minutes will raise the oxygen levels back up, not just to that 70, 75%, but it'll get up to about 90 to 95% saturation, which is the same effect of a hyperbaric chamber if you were to sit in that hyperbaric chamber for an hour. So you get that boom pretty quick. So 20 minutes for what I call recovery. If I were still an athlete, I'd be sitting in this every day, 20 minutes after my workouts.
Right.
If there's any kind of muscle or injury treatment, then I would up that to maybe 40 minutes or so. Okay, 40 minutes to an hour. But anything over an hour is total detox. I mean, you've got so much oxygen being perfused, being forced into the muscle tissues that all that waste has to come out. Right. And we've seen, in fact, one of our testimonials was a lady who had been, unfortunately, kind of hooked on heroin, and she had been in and out of rehab a few times. And she's very open and honest about her challenges with it in her testimonial. Right. So, I mean, it's very brave of her to do that. This is on our YouTube channel. Yeah. But so she'd been in and out of rehab and gone through the whole detox process a couple of times. And So she was going through it again and sat in that tub for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right.
And she said it felt like she had gone through a week of rehab.
Oh, wow.
It was that fast. It was just cleaned all that stuff out. Now they really had to wipe that tub and clean that tub out after she was done, you know. And so, but it does have that kind of deep detox capability. Wow.
And so this is like, because like from an old school standpoint, right? Before, like, it was, you go work out, you do your stuff, and then you get in the ice bath for, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you can handle it, right? And now it's like, okay, it's the ice bath is the hip thing to do, but like we were doing it back in the training room, and they were just saying like, you stay in there, like you want to get out, and you're like, nope, stay in there, and they pour more ice in, and you're like, oh my gosh,
oh my gosh,
right, and like, but this obviously is a more comfortable solution to that, and more effective, right? Because all we were trying to do is just get it so cold that we're trying to get the new blood flow in to get the blood flow to flush everything out. But like, if it's so oxygenated, like we talked about, it has to force everything out because there's so much oxygen going in.
Oh, it does.
It's a far better solution.
Yeah, and so looking into the ice bath and the cold plunge challenges, the oxygen, the SMO2 levels, they bump up a little bit, so they get a little bit of a boost, because the first thing that will actually increase the oxygen, you get in that bath water, or I'm sorry, you get in that cold ice tub, and the first thing you're doing is like, right? Yeah. You get that huge inhalation that brings oxygen up a little bit. Okay. Right. But the whole benefit of it, of course, from an oxygenation standpoint, is that, they say the blood starts coming out of the extremities into the core where it's more oxygen rich, the lungs, the liver, down into the trunk, and then it starts flushing back out as you get out of there. Right. Right. But really the biggest benefit of it, of course, is the dopamine rush. Yeah. So you got that dopamine rush afterwards, you're feeling great, and you've basically tricked your body into thinking, man, I feel great and this is awesome. Right. Well, you haven't really increased SMO2 by any meaningful amount out of that. Right. So there's no amount of ice bath that is going to lift SMO2, not just to regular levels, but back up to that 90-95% area. There's no amount of ice bath that's going to do it. Yeah. And, I was actually reading this, this goes back a few years now. I just happened to catch a headline about the guy from the old sports scientist in the 70s at the University of Michigan who came up with the RICE method. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. Right. Well, it was either 2016 or 2017 in the Sports Journal of Medicine, I saw a headline that he had totally recanted all of that. He's like, man, I had it all wrong. And I think he has the HARM method now: heat, activity, rest, and movement. Yeah. And so the thing about the ice, and this is just for any kind of injury. And for me, this hit home because I had twisted my ankle a lot. I was always twisting my ankles as a shot put and discus thrower. I was always twisting my ankles. Right. And I had always learned, once I feel like I'm twisting my ankle, just fall down. I'm not even going to try to walk on it, and then get ice on it right away. Did that all throughout the 80s as a high school, in the 90s as a collegiate athlete. And so about 4 years ago, well, this is more like 3 years ago, I had twisted my ankle again. And this was after having seen this article. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that protocol. I'm not going to do RICE anymore. Yeah. I'm going to heat. I'm going to do activity. I'm going to do the rest and the movement. And it took a while for it to come back. I mean, normally, icing it, I'd be back in a couple of days. Everything's fine. But basically, you're just numbing the pain and creating scar tissue in that area. Right. That just gets built up over time. So this actually took me about a month and a half after I switched protocols, and I've not had any problem with my ankles ever since. So the same kind of holds true, I believe, about the ice bath. There are people who absolutely love it, and I think it's great. The dopamine is something else. It's a great rush. Right. But again, going back to the oxygen levels, it does not have any meaningful increase to what you can inhale beyond the lungs, because the lungs are your bottleneck. You can't take in any more just because you sit in ice, right? In fact, it probably a little bit less. Yeah. But without that, you're not going to get that increase in the SMO2 where the actual cellular recovery happens, and that's where the bath really has a great advantage over it. Right. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I'm like itching, if you will, to like get an opportunity to try it out, because
gosh, it's been 12. Yeah, 12 years and 10 years, because I've had it happen twice, or I've had my lung collapse spontaneously. And the second time they actually had to take some out. I've got a section that's probably about an inch and a half of my rib cage at the lower end of my right side that's just gone because they took that lobe of that lung out. And I mean, it's crazy statistical, like randomized, like, I mean, it's so many decimal points of a percentage of a millionth of a person that experiences this. It's crazy.
Wow.
And I feel it like if I go on a really long run or a really hard workout, I can feel it from an oxygen standpoint. I can feel like, I'm like, oh my gosh, because there's just not as much lung capacity.
Yeah.
Because I'm missing some.
I can imagine.
And so that's another reason why I'm like, I really want to try this out and see the difference and feel the difference, because I know I'd be able to feel it being so in tune with myself anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, anytime you come here to Houston, and we've got at our Bimini Center here, which is just right by up here on the northwest side of town, 249 in the Beltway 8. If you're familiar with Houston at all, we've got our Bimini's headquarters are here. We've got actually got a spa with a nice warm whirlpool there. We keep it about 97 degrees. It's got big NanoJet Pro unit that we've been selling to professional sports teams and collegiate athletic departments. We've got that one there. We've also got our own little Moximeter, which is an NIRS meter that we can put on you. It'll take your SMO2 levels before you get in that tub. And then you'll be able to monitor it as you're in there. If we'll take it at every 5-minute interval or continuously even. And we'd be happy to host you anytime.
That's awesome.
In January, we're going to have, we've actually started marketing this now.
Yeah.
We've got our NanoJet Eco unit, which is just coming off the assembly lines, and we'll start shipping here in a couple weeks. And this is the home use unit. Okay. And so it's about 50 pounds. It's about like the size of an oxygen concentrator, a little bit bigger than a vacuum cleaner. It's about 45, 50 pounds. It's easier to travel with. Okay. And it is perfect for individual small tubs. And that's what we use it for. We'll be selling those to business practitioners, like gym owners, fitness club owners. We've got people who are like taking it to their country club and hosting little Bimini bath parties, yoga studios, but also for individuals. I've got a number of individuals who are buying it for their home use. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to charge up a tub, anything less than 100 gallons. So if you got your bathtub at home, fill it up with your warm water, charge it up. That's good for about, if you're sitting in it the whole time, that's good for a couple of hours of that oxygen. You can keep the unit running while you're in there. It's not really necessary because once each tub, I kind of look at it like a battery. Once it's charged with those nanobubbles, those things are so small, they're not floating up. They're trapped in the water.
Gotcha.
Okay. And if we let that water just sit there, we let that tub just sit there, it would hold those nanobubbles in there for 3-4 days, 36 to 48 hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Now the water of the temperature of the water might get a little uncomfortable.
Right.
But and then once you get in it, then it starts soaking it in and it starts losing that.
Right.
But if you were to sit in it continuously, you wouldn't see any really meaningful drop in the parts per million for at least 3 or 4 hours. Okay.
Oh wow.
So it's that travel unit's going to be a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially like physical therapy clinics and and because the other thing is that from a healing standpoint, from not just athletic injuries, but any kind of healing standpoint, like that oxygen plays such a key role in that, because it is part of the delivery system. It is part of, and so, for the elderly that have healing issues or anything like that, like I could see this in those applications as well of, whether it's a physical therapy clinic or a retirement home that has,
assisted living,
a hot tub or whatever, assisted living place where it's like, okay, let me go in here and, I mean, from a muscle movement standpoint, from all like, it sounds like it's better than having them go to a yoga class or a stretching class or something like that from what it's going to do from a muscle standpoint.
Yeah, well, it should be as much a staple as any of those things, or more of a staple, because think about inflammation. Okay, inflammation and just the pain that comes from that inflammation, whether it's fibromyalgia, whether it's osteoarthritis. We take NSAIDs and anti-inflammatories and things like that to try to knock it down. But what really is the cause of it is lack of oxygen in those areas. Why is it inflamed? Why are those joints inflamed? Why are those tendons inflamed? It's because that's on a cellular level, they're not getting what they need. And that can be either the glucose, the nutritional side, or it could be oxygen, getting into those areas, or a mix of both. So we have seen people, in fact, we've got some testimonials on our YouTube channel about this as well. A lady who suffered from fibromyalgia, was always just swollen and in pain. And, I can empathize with that. She sat in the tub, she was in there for about an hour and she got out. She's like, man, I haven't felt this good in years. Oh, wow. And it knocked it down. Now, of course, that's, just kind of like a massage might, or like going to the chiropractor might, that's going to wear off over some amount of time as the body processes that. But if you make it a constant piece, if they make it a constant piece to their, like their treatment regimen, eventually it's going, well, I can't say really go away or heal or cure, but they might lose a lot of that natural inflammation as they're feeding their body more of what it needs. Right.
And that's like, it's hard to use the cure word and those types of things, but from and masking is probably the wrong word, because it is working. It's not just masking the symptoms, like it's working at the cellular level. But like with anything else, if you go away from that, if you're a smoker and you stop smoking, it's great. But if you go back to it, well, that's not going to help, right? And so if you use it to overcome some of the issues you've got, and like take it like sprain an ankle, right? Like if you use it and you're going to heal the sprained ankle and it's going to be great, but then you go out and do the same stuff that you did that sprained the ankle before. Well, I mean, you're only going to be getting so much benefit out of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned smoking, and think of the effect that has on the heart, right? Right. When the heart loses that oxygen, it starts calcifying. That's where a lot of the heart issues come from. Yep. And it's in this same example, using your same analogy, somebody uses the tub, and actually that oxygen can revive that muscle. Yeah. Okay. So if they get better from it, but they go back to smoking or they continue smoking, it's not like it's going to go away forever. They're going to have to continue that. So that's why I like to use it on a regular basis. I'm 10 minutes away from the office, so it's awesome to be there. I go take my Bimini bath just about every day, every weekday, for about 30 minutes over my lunch hour. And, I can feel it, in my joints. I can feel those days when I don't do it. I'm up and down stairs every day, and, I'm pretty active still. And, those over the weekends, I start feeling it on Sundays, like, man, my knees are a little bit sore. And, over the last few months, I've had a lot of things get better physically. And one of them is, my attitude, just I call it my countenance. Okay. And the only thing that I can relate it to was about 20 some odd years ago. I was grossly overweight. I was pushing about 280 pounds. Right. I was depressed. I was eating like garbage. And my wife at the time, she's like, man, you're depressed. You need to get on something. You need to get on Wellbutrin. You need to take a pharmaceutical for it. And so I did. Yeah. And pretty soon thereafter, everything got kind of a little bit brighter. It felt a little bit better, right? Right. And I enjoyed that, but I didn't want to be stuck on a pharmaceutical. I didn't want to be stuck on a drug for, the rest of my life or any prolonged amount of time. So what I decided back then to do was, okay, I need to make these changes to my life, start exercising again, those things that I know make me feel better. And so I took the natural route. It took a lot longer for me to get back to that state of not being depressed. Yeah. But I didn't know that my countenance was probably due to stress or whatever, was still, kind of down here just recently. Right. And after about a week, my first week in the tub, I just felt things kind of lift. It's like, oh my gosh. And the funny thing is, oxygen is so important, even for the synthesis, the synthesis and the utilization of neurotransmitters like dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. All of those require to have a higher amount of dopamine naturally in your body. It does require more oxygen to create it, and that's your feel-good drug right there. So it has effects on that. And one of the other areas that we're seeing quite a bit people reporting is that of brain fog. I was talking to a gentleman just last week who's opening up a spa on Fifth Avenue in New York next month in January, and he was saying that after COVID, he caught COVID like twice. Okay, and he's a mergers acquisition. He's actually a sports scout as well. They've got this company that scouts out like young soccer stars across Europe and Africa and brings them into the sports schools, right?
Nice.
And he's a real interesting guy. But he's opening this spa in New York on Fifth Avenue. But he was telling me, after he caught COVID, he just he didn't feel his mind was working like it used to work. And as in finance and M&A, being a business analyst, he's like, I used to have he said he used to have immediate command of numbers.
Right.
And after COVID, he's like, he just didn't feel like he did anymore. And it got to the point where he was feeling depressed about it. Yeah. And I didn't realize it, but that is kind of common amongst, that population that had COVID a number of times.
Right.
And I've heard stories since then. He was sharing stories, and people that we were talking to also were sharing stories of people who got so depressed that he even knew somebody who took their own life from it, because it's like, I just can't be who I was before. So they got that depressed and despondent. Okay. Yeah. Well, he got in the tub, a little over a month ago for his first demo, and he said, boom, that all came back. That brain fog was just gone. Well, you think about it, the brain uses an inordinate amount of the oxygen that's in our body. It's like something like, 5% or 2% of the body's weight, but it uses something like 20% of the body's oxygen. I mean, it has to keep on firing.
Yep.
And so there's huge benefit in that area, brain fog. And I would be very, very eager. I say this very delicately. I'd be eager to try this with people who are early onset Alzheimer's or early at risk Alzheimer's and see if it helps them at all.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I wanted to ask the questions about next was that mental health side of things, because it is oxygen dependent, and it is something that, as people don't take care of their health, right? It's pretty documented that, if you're overweight, you're obese, it leads to dementia, Alzheimer's, right? Like at a higher level, higher rate, faster rate. And so, but a piece of that is you're constricting your blood vessel, you're constricting your blood flow. And so that oxygen is not able to get there as quickly and as fast. And so that's why you have all these mental health issues start popping up. And, which is why a lot of people say, okay, well, the first thing you got to do is you just got to breathe better, learn how to breathe better, right? That's a huge common thing right now that's out and about with self-help people, and it is learning how to breathe better, which is true. And that's an important piece of it, but to have an even bigger jump, right? That would be, I think that's a massive technology breakthrough. To be able to say, okay, breathing better is great, but if you can add this to it as well, it's sort of like saying, hey, cars are great, and safe and everything, but if you can add a seatbelt, they're even safer.
Exactly. A car will get me from Texas to California in about 2.5, 3 days, right? But what will a jet plane do? What will a commercial airliner do? Give me there in a few hours.
Yeah.
But I agree. If the Marines and the Special Forces will teach their their members how to breathe strategically to control stress and their reaction to fight or flight, the box method and all the things that they do. There's definitely a lot of validity to that and a lot of importance to that. And in the absence of being able to get more oxygen into our body from any other source, that's what we're resigned to. That's what we're limited to. And it does help, what's the yogi name for the yogi practice of breathing? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's like, I don't want to butcher it. I'm not even going to take a stab at it. I can't remember. But so, I mean, there's a lot of different practices that do it. But again, that might get me from New York, that might get me from Texas to California at 90 miles an hour, as opposed to driving the speed limit. But it's still not as good as the jet plane. Right.
And so, like, from the standpoint of, like, I know you're excited about this. Like, we've talked before about it. Like, I know you're excited about this. Like, where does like the company see the most potential moving forward?
Wow, there are so many different areas. The first area this is going back maybe almost 4 years ago. The first area that the company went with the product when their first prototypes were put together was the medical community. People like Johns Hopkins and the Mayo Clinic, and they were intrigued by it. There were doctors, I want to study that. Give us 5 to 10 years to do our studies on it. I'm sorry, that's not how business works. That's not the economy here. So that's when we took it to athletic departments. And we've had, in fact, I got to give a huge shout out to Dr. Dean Miller down at Rice, Associate Athletic Director down at Rice for Sports Medicine and Athletic Training. He was the very first to jump onto it. He is a trendsetter. He is a forward thinker. He is on our medical board of advisors, and he was the first to do the white paper studies. Rice has it. They've got 3 units right now. They've got one down in their general tubs. They've got some tubs, Whirlpool tubs for their football team. They've got one that services the football team's tubs. They got one for the rest of them. And they've even got a travel unit, one of the ecos that I was talking about for their basketball team that they're taking around. You travel a lot in basketball. Throwing some A&M back in this and a little bit of relevance. We saw Buzz Williams. They had something like 8 out of 10 games in November on the road. And the last couple of those games, they looked pretty weary, pretty kind of slow. And they lost to people. Who was it? Virginia. Florida Atlantic and like North Carolina or something like that. Had they had one of these units, they might have been a little bit fresher. But so athletics was wave number 2, and but there are only so many pro sports teams, college teams, JUCOs to sell to, and they are slower in their selling cycle, and that's where we came out with the eco unit, the travel unit. We see huge opportunities in really 2 general populations there. First being, the fitness crowd. If you got a fitness club, you got a gym owner, people who don't want to necessarily buy one or use one all the time at their own home. We're taking this to, the independent gym owners to add into their list of services that they might offer to their members. So that's one area there. The business practitioners. We think the biggest crowd in terms of numbers is going to be in the retirees, the Gen Xers who are starting to hit that, and the baby boomers who are already there, and they want quality of life, and that quality of life is so important. I'm in my younger 50s. Are you 50? You're not even 50 yet, are you?
Not yet. I got 6 months to go.
Yeah, 6 months ago. Okay, I just turned 53. And so, over that, in the last few years, over 50, it's like, the joints start feeling a little bit more, but, and I'm just trying to project out 10 years from now, like, man, if this is, I don't want this to get worse. I want quality of life. I want to be able to do the things that I've been able to do and be active, coaching kids in sports. I'm going to be volunteering at track meets all over for A&M, and I want to be involved in those communities where I find so much of my recharging. But if my mobility goes away, or even if, some of those things just start deteriorating, I get less and less able. So that population is absolutely dialed into it. When we talk about quality of life, not having those, the arthritis and the fibromyalgia, those constant pains, fighting those off. So we see, big areas there. Those are probably the two biggest areas.
Well, and you said mobility, and that's, really everything about it goes to mobility, right? So it's like the athletes want more mobility and agility. And like you said, the retirees, that's the biggest issue of, and I talk to people about it from a weight loss standpoint, health standpoint, movement standpoint, is like, well, if all you do for 20 or 30 or 40 years is go to work, sit at a desk, you don't exercise, you don't eat right, you gain weight, like, how do you think your retirement years are going to look? You're not all of a sudden just going to be like, oh, hey, let's go fly over to Europe and go hiking for 3 days around Rome, and experience all those things. You're going to be like, oh, or, hey, let's take the grandkids to Disney. Well, you're going to be like, hey, y'all go on that ride. We're going to sit on the bench and wait because we can't, we're tired and we can't move and our legs hurt. And, all the things that we can logically and rationally go, oh yeah, that's probably where I'm going to be. But I can see this helping in so many ways for people that are heading that direction.
Yeah, and see, I had to have my own, come to Jesus moment on that as well, not too long ago, because, as a consultant working with a lot of different startups, as I've done over the past, in the last 4 or 5 years, I have experienced myself being more desk bound, and really more since I haven't been active in coaching youth sports and having that as my kind of general activity. And I can be such a workaholic at times where suddenly 8 hours have gone by and I haven't gotten up from my desk. And a lot of people are like that. And even though I've got a standing desk, I can stand up, sit down, whatever, that's great. But it is not the movement that I was accustomed to. And so when everything started getting really tight and sore, getting myself up to go exercise was always a challenge, always a battle. Like, oh man, I really don't want to go to the weight room. Man, I really don't want to go jogging. Oh, I'm just so sore, so tight. And so I had that mental battle. Fortunately, that's where I kind of keyed myself. I said, okay, when I'm telling myself that, when I hear that self-talk, that's my cue. I got to go. And so no matter how bad it hurts, get started. And, once I'm done, I've always felt better. However, now that I've been, this is probably 2.5, maybe 3 months of constant bath therapy. I really don't have those challenges anymore. I'm able to stay mobile, the joints feel great. Like I said, I'm up and down stairs all the time now. And before, when it would be like, oh, my knees. Now it's like, all right, no problem. Then I feel like I can go tackle more things. And that's the new challenge is, okay, I really can't tackle as much as I think I can, but you know what? I'm a heck of a lot better than I was, a few months back.
Nice. Well, and so like from a standpoint of, we talked about it from a recovery standpoint, right? Like getting into it after has there been research done, or have y'all looked at is there benefit to it? Like a pre-workout protocol and a post-workout protocol?
So research, official research, no. Anecdotal evidence, a lot of it. And so we've got a couple dozen athletes in the NFL this season using it. And so the names that I am going to mention, that they're all over social media with it. So somebody like Tyler Biadasz, starting center for the Dallas Cowboys, probably be an all-pro this year. He's had a NanoJet this entire season. And he posts it all over his Instagram, so you can see it there, and we tag him and he tags us and whatnot. And so his feedback to us is that he will do it, maybe 18 hours before game. And he feels like he's just ready to go. And what he's trying to do now with it, or what we've heard, is that he's trying to make it so that he can do it, early in the morning before they have their team meetings and all their film studies, because, everybody drags in, whatever, 6, 7 a.m. They start their team meetings, their film sessions, and whatnot. And everyone's like, Well, he does it every so often before that, and he feels like he's sharp and able to focus. So this was one of the suggestions I made to Kavan Aberdeen, who's the gentleman who's been putting the spa in on Fifth Avenue in New York.
Okay. Yep.
You got to have an investment banker's package. What do you mean? So if I were an investment banker, if I were in that world, I'd want to get in there, 6 a.m.,
right.
have the news on in front of me, maybe have my coffee with me or something like that. So I'm ready to go the moment I hit the floor, the moment the market opens, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So we've that's kind of an aside, but we've also had other players here in Houston. Noah Brown, who's a receiver for the Texans, he'll do it. And he brings a couple of the guys in with him, and they do it either at Rice or at our place up here, usually a day or 2 days before. Now, when they first started, we said, "Look, don't upset your game."
Right.
Everybody kind of reacts differently to it, and we didn't really know at the time what it would be.
Yeah.
But what we're really going to be looking for this spring, as we're dealing with different track and field programs and athletes at different levels, is recovery between events.
Right.
Okay. And this is going to be exciting for me, at least, because you know what it's like at a meet. It's a 2-day event. It's a 3-day event, whether you're a multi-eventer or whether you've got, you show up and on day one, you've got prelims and maybe some semis, and then you're into the finals, right?
Yep.
That may go over. If you got it all in one day, you may be running 3 to 6 races a day if you're a sprinter.
Oh, yeah.
You're running 100, 200, and maybe you're doing a long jump or you're doing a field event.
Right.
You're in a busy day. So if we could have a tub, at a meet like that, and have kids or, the athletes come in between events, even 10 minutes or 15 minutes, not too long, but, 20 minutes, I would say tops, to where the temperature of the tub's not going to be so warm that it relaxes their muscles too much, kind of takes them out of the zone. To me, to my way of thinking, I believe that would at least increase their energy level on subsequent events, subsequent races or whatnot. So I'm really excited to see what we're going to be doing with some of the track teams this spring during indoor season at places like A&M and a few other schools as we roll this out.
No, I hadn't even thought of that, but that's so true. And I'm sure that in figuring out what that timing is, right, is going to be crucial. But yeah, I could see, because I don't know how many times I ran, a prelim for the 1500, and then come back and run, the 3000 or 5000 that night, and then you got the final for the 1500 the next day, and that's 4 miles or 5 miles worth of racing in a 2-day period. That's
highly competitive. That's high stress stuff. That's not like your normal workouts, right?
Right.
Your daily workouts would probably be at what, 70-80% intensity tops.
Yeah,
leading in a meet environment, you're topping out. You're going full bore. You're 95, 100%. That really knocks everything down. Yeah,
and then of course, if you have a tweak here or there, right? Yeah, like you tweak a muscle or something, and it's like, okay, now you've not only have you got that injury to overcome, but you've got the stress of that that adds onto it. And so, having something that, and this is one of the reasons why so many people, especially in the distance world, so many people train at altitude, and then come down to, so they'll train in Flagstaff, and then they'll come down to Austin or New Orleans or, somewhere that they can go like, okay, now I'm the oxygen rich environment for them, because they're, 3 or 4 months worth of oxygen depletion at their level. They come down, and it's like, it for somebody like me that's training at altitude, it's an unfair advantage for them.
Yeah, because
they're swimming in oxygen. Like that's what we call it. Like they're swimming in oxygen when they come down here and just breathe in normal. But if that can level the playing field of like, if I can get in here and get the same oxygen rich environment inside my blood from an athletic standpoint, it's a no-brainer.
It really is, and I think at that point it's just a matter. Okay, what's the right temperature so that your muscles have the right reaction to it, right?
Right.
Because we've all been in that boat before. We've seen people, or we've heard about it. They get I'm going to get in a hot tub. 10 minutes before I go out and compete, get in the game or run a race, and then it's like they're sluggish.
Yep.
That's just kind of normal. So what's the right temperature? What's the right duration there? I've got my own thoughts about it, but I think for everybody it's going to be different. Now, and that you mentioned the injuries, the injury protocols, when you're talking about those high performing athletes, they don't want to sit out. That's the worst thing to do, is to have to sit out. And what we saw, again, bringing Noah Brown back into this, the wide receiver for the Houston Texans, the first time that he was in the tub, this was what game was that before? It was before his breakout game, and I can't remember who that was off the top of my head. It was like 3 weeks ago. He had a breakout game with a 75-yard touchdown catch, and he ended up having like 159 yards that week. Well, that whole week at practice, he said everybody was commenting, so, well, you look like you're running on fresh legs, man. Everybody else has been through a season where they're just a little bit slower, getting beat up on. The body's still trying to recover from the pounding. Well, he had those fresh legs. Then the next week, he had like 170 some odd yards, and just he actually caught the pass that put him in the position for the field goal to win that game. I think that was I can't remember if that was Carolina or who that was. But then he got hurt in that game and pulled a hamstring. Well, he was out for 2 weeks, and he was trying to recover. It was the quad or the hamstring? I can't remember what his injury was. But he upped his tub time. Instead of doing an hour once or twice a week, he was doing an hour almost every day a week. And he just got back. He was out for the 2 games, and he just got back on the field in this last game this past Sunday. And let's see here, that was I can't even remember who that was now. I can't remember any of their schedule. I need to follow a little bit closer, but it kind of shortened that injury time just as a part of their treatment protocol. Yeah.
Well, and like for people that don't know, I mean, like
Denver, that's who they just beat. They just beat Denver.
Yeah. I mean, you pull a quad, and like from my standpoint, like if somebody tells me you pull a quad, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm out a month. Like pull a hamstring, it's like 6 weeks. Like boom, done. Like that's just the way it is. It's like nope. And to be able to come back in 2 weeks is like it almost makes you question, like, did you really pull it? Like, really? Like, is it really? But but it makes sense from a standpoint of what's happening internally, what's happening physiologically, that like the healing process is sped up that fast.
Yeah. Well, it is sped up that fast. And the point, hey, did you really hurt it? We're talking about Noah Brown, the guy's only on a 1 year contract,
right?
1 year contract, just for the Texans. He came from the Dallas Cowboys, so on a 1 year contract, he does not want to be hurt. He wants another contract, right? So anything that he could do to speed that up, he was doing it, and now the word's kind of getting around a little bit more throughout that athletic world about what's happening with this. And so we got a lot more guys, a lot more athletes. We got, we got a couple athletes out of the WNBA. We've had Sterling Brown from the Houston Rockets has been using this for a few years, and our own, you know who Fred Curley is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Fred Curley used this back 2020. When he was overcoming his injury. Now that's when he was training here in Houston, and he was able to get into the tub pretty regular, but now he's been training out in Arizona. But he's given us a testimonial, and he loves it. And so it's gotten a lot of great reviews, rave reviews from a lot of athletes out there.
Right.
But you're right. They're the early adopters, because at that collegiate level, and you were there and I was there, we all know, man, I'm here on scholarship. I want to keep my scholarship money. Now that they got NIL and they got all these new changes. It's that competitive.
Oh yeah.
Anything to keep me on the field, anything to keep me here. Plus, we're competitive anyways. We were the best, at the lower levels in high schools. We were the best of the best. We got to high school and we realized, man, everybody was a high school star here.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Ultra competitive. We want to be out there. We want to win. We want to do our best. And so, I always tell the story, back then at A&M, we had the world's largest weight room at the time, Needham Steed.
Right.
And right next door, attached to it, part of it was their sports medicine center that had a hyperbaric chamber in there. Yeah. And nobody could ever sit in it. Nobody. Yeah. I don't think an athlete ever got into that, because they were it was reserved for the sports science or sports med people. Yeah. And it was like, man, we got this great thing right here. How come we can't use it?
Right.
You know,
Yep.
so anything that we could do to keep ourselves, operating day in, day out at a high level, practicing at a high level, and recovering quickly, and competing at the best that we could. That's what we were all looking for. So the athletes understand it; and they get it quickly.
Yeah. Well, and then from the normal person, like you should understand, like, oxygen feeds everything, and so the better you can get at supplying oxygen, it's going to lead to longevity. Yeah. Like, it's going to lead to a better life down the road.
That reminds me of, so about 4 years ago, this was right before I came across the guys at Bimini. Mm-hmm. I had seen this article about research that was being done at University of Tel Aviv in Israel. Okay. They were researching the effect of oxygen on chromosomes, because at the end of every chromosome are these caps called telomeres.
Right.
And their theory was, these telomeres, they seem to shorten as we get older. Right. And so their whole study, they took, I don't know, something like 300 people, all different age groups, all different kind of, cross section of their population. Right. Right. And their whole thing, they sit in a hyperbaric chamber 1 hour a day for 90 days. Okay. It stopped the shortening of the telomeres. Okay. Okay. So they're thinking, we've just found right. We know how to stop the aging process, because if the telomeres don't shorten, then people aren't aging. Yeah. Well, considering that, if your insurance covers a hyperbaric session, that's still going to cost you about $300 maybe out of pocket. If it doesn't cover it, you're probably going to get $1,000 per session. Right. Not to mention you're sitting in that, 2 ATMs, 3 ATMs pressure, and all the stuff that comes with that. You can have sinus pressures. It can collapse your ears. It can actually collapse your lungs. Yep. And if you go the cheap route and you don't go to an FDA certified facility, it can blow up on you. You don't know what you're getting. So it becomes very exclusive. Yeah. For people to really make a meaningful difference, in their health and wellness, and something that has been proven to work. And so it was like 2 weeks or shortly after I had read that article, saw that headline and read the article, I came across Bimini. I was like, there certainly aren't any coincidences. Okay, here we go. Right. Now we've got a way to sit in a tub and get that same amount of oxygen, get it the same way, Yeah.
A lot healthier too.
Oh, much healthier. Yeah. And you for the general public, our challenge is really spreading that education. Yeah. Well, of course I need oxygen. Why are you trying to sell me some oxygen? Why do I need oxygen in a tub? I can breathe all the oxygen I need for free. It's like, well, yes, you can, but the more oxygen you get, it has these effects on you. It has these effects on the human body, and there's still the large vast majority of I'll call them the non-athletic population. They need to be, there just needs to be a larger general awareness, of more education. So when we talk to the general population about our salespeople, or even through our marketing, it's all about educating. Right. And that's what we love to do, is just say, look, these are the benefits of getting more oxygen in your body. And here's a lot of studies, white paper studies and medical studies that link so many different diseases, maladies, infirmities, you name it, the lack of oxygen. Yep. It's ridiculous. When I started getting there, I was like, people are going to think we're making this up.
Right. No, but it is. It's, oxygen, it's the breath of life. Like, and you can take that down to every single cell, and then you when you extrapolate that and go, oh, well, okay. Well, it makes sense that if that cell dies off, and then I'm going to have a problem here or there, or, and it's, or it's not going to be strong enough to prevent this disease or this virus or this whatever, then you really start to backtrack that up and go like, okay, oxygen's pretty important. Yeah.
And the more, the funny thing is, you're not going to die or from too much oxygen. Right. And there really aren't any bad side effects to having too much oxygen. Okay. Right. They're not like having, go through a whole list of side effects of the pharmaceuticals that you may be taking to cure something, and the pharmaceuticals to offset those side effects, and so forth and whatnot. Right. And one thing that gets overlooked quite a bit is the immune system's dependency on oxygen. The macrophages, the red blood cells, all of that fueled by oxygen. And I think you probably did too as an athlete, had a heightened awareness that, when I or other athletes were under like really heavy training loads, I used to notice that that's when we would get a cold, right? Get sick, or something. And it's because that same immune system that wards off sickness and disease is responsible for repairing the cells from something like a jog or a run or a weightlifting session. Right. It's all the same system. And so that immune system is what ties it all together. And you deprive the immune system of oxygen, you'll get sick, you'll catch something just like that.
Yeah, totally will. So from an education standpoint, how can people that are intrigued find out more?
The best thing to do is to go to our website, BiminiHydrotherapy.com. You see Bimini, hydrotherapy.com. And we have a white papers section, and we're always adding to it. Whenever we see any kind of medical study that links anything to oxygen, whether it's, a simple cold, whether it's cancer, fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, anything, sleep apnea, any of that, we're putting it there because, if the medical community believes it, then that should be the proof positive. And that's one thing that we didn't mention is the sleep. The first thing that happened, the first day that I got out of the tub, man, I had the best sleep I had ever had. And I don't have problems sleeping. When I hit the bed, I'm like, I'm out, right? But that first night after my first bath, I woke up the next morning. I was just like, what was that? That was amazing. I want more nights like that. And that must have been the first time I've ever experienced that with the delta wave sleep. Right. And so we've got testimonials here. This is awesome because this is where I love the only reason I love the Apple Watch. Okay, you know how it has that like sleep monitor on it. Yep. So we've got a couple of ladies in Dallas who are members of the company. They're like investors, and they also use the tub and whatnot. Yep. But they had gotten this new Apple Watch a few months back, and they were monitoring their sleep patterns. And you saw the chart that goes like this, right? And then the following day after the tub, and I was like, I know what that is. That was your first night of sleep after that bath, man. That was something amazing. But, we've had people with sleep apnea as well. Not have to wear their masks for a little while. A few days afterwards, they slept like. Awesome. But we have all those studies, all those white papers, all of that stuff. We put it in the white paper sections of our website. We share that with the world. And when we train our salespeople, we're training them on the same message. Okay. When they're talking to our potential customers, they're saying the same things. Look, here's what it's been here's what more oxygen has been medically proven to do for the human body. And here's how you can get more of it without having to spend thousands of dollars a week with going to a hyperbaric chamber. Right.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So I love this. And so hopefully we can learn more about it as y'all expand and have you back on and talk more about it as things start to blossom in the new year. So thank you so much.
Happy to do it anytime. Thanks for having me on. And anything that I can do to share with anybody who sees this, feel free to hit me up.
Will do. Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.